My name is Ronald Melvin.
My name is Ralpher Boswell.
My name is John Tipton.
My name is Robin Cole.
My name is Charles R. Merkel.
And I'm Nate McLaughlin.
I'm Blanche Valentine, and this is Palm Coast View.
Good morning, and welcome again to Palm Coast View. Our topic today is the red herring in American society. It says a red herring is something that misleads or distracts from a relevant or important question. That by changing the subject matter, everything just changed at that point, which never answered the question that was asked. From. Well, red herring itself as a term came from the English. When they were training hounds, they would take a fur from a fox and they would run it across the ground, and the dogs would start to get the feel of the smell. And once they got used to that, they would take the smell of a red herrings and they would drag that across the trail. And if they went off where the red herrings were, then it was called following the red herring. When Cameron knelt during the American anthem. The American anthem argument was not what was going on. The kneeling was to bring attention to a subject. How did it get switched to?
But I understand the part that Mel was saying about the kneeling. I think people got the wrong perception of it because people have been kneeling for years. But because it was at a football game, people took that as I guess, disrespect for the national anthem. But if you go back, Martin Luther King knelt. More people knelt than anything else. So I don't understand why they got so upset with the kneeling of one football player during the national anthem. And I'll probably have more to say on this later on, so you can pass it on to someone else now.
Thank you, brother. Robin, why don't you share your thoughts on this?
Okay, thanks, John. So I have a couple of interesting insights, if you will. First one is, Mel, you mentioned red herring and that it was British. And it automatically brought me back to when Obama was in office. And all of a sudden, everyone, America, became obsessed with the royal family. Red herring, British royal family. Okay, so I guess you needed something to talk about. And I could never understand why the Americans had to have this obsession, but that's all you saw in the news. That's all you saw in the newspaper. That's all you heard on the radio. It's all the different things going on. And it's still there today, but not like it was before. So even everything with Meghan and Harry has slowed down, and you really don't see a lot of stuff with them anymore either. But that was one. And also when you were talking, another thing that came to mind was this whole thing with the post office and the moving of the mailboxes. They're not getting rid of the mailboxes so that nobody can vote. They were getting rid of the mailboxes because people are constantly tipping them over, and they have actually been replacing them with new sturdier mailboxes and with the ones that people can't actually go in and steal the mail, because that's what was happening also. And if people really want to vote by mail, they can go to the post office like we used to in the olden days before the mailboxes were even there. Just go to the post office itself and mail your vote in that way.
Thank you, Robin. Let me ask you this, as relates to the red herring during the Obama administration, the royal family. Do you feel, because I can remember that we had that obsession when, I remember Prince Charles and Princess Diana, I don't remember when they got married. And that was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, media event of the year, that year. And then when Princess Diana died, of course, in 1997, the world came to an end. or pause for a moment. So, do you feel that that was something that has always been there, or and why do you feel that that's something that happened during the Obama administration versus prior times before? We seem to always have some sort of recession as Americans.
We did. We had, yes, and the marriage of, Prince Charles and Diana, that was huge, and it was a big deal all around the world. I mean, their royalty, I think they deserved it, but it was just it was too much of it. It was real. There was a real obsession with it. It was a lot more to it than when Obama was in. And I've lived in England for a little while, so just to come back here and have the newspapers and the media talking about all of that, it just seemed the timing was off.
Gotcha.
And I was over in England also right after, like 2 weeks after Princess Di got killed, and it's not their royalty over there, and the obsession is not as bad over there as much as it was here. So it just different perspective. I just think it was overkill over here, and to me, it was something was hiding, going on behind the scenes, and they needed to distract us, and they did a good job of it.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Nate, why don't you give us a few your thoughts on this?
Well, sure. Thank you. There's so many voices out there now with the advent of this media that we have, social media and all the blogging and the opinion pieces going on. We were talking earlier, newspapers. When's the last time a newspaper to be neutral on anything, or any news outlet for that matter? I want to circle back now to the Kaepernick situation when he kneeled. I'm watching that game, and the guy kneels, and of course, we lose perspective, and the media loves the diversion. I'm going to refer over to Mel and his magic. Magicians always deal with diversions. That's the act. And what a wonderful way to put this. The act that we get from our public people, and they create the diversions. Mr. Kaepernick or Kaepernick, I don't want to offend anybody on how you pronounce the man's name, but did that mean anything to me? Only that he wanted to make a statement about something. But do we have a say-so in that? That's between him and his employer. I think what we lost the perspective of is that we're there for the entertainment value. Now, if I go to a concert and I don't like the music, I'm not going to go again. Okay, I'm not going to put an ad on Facebook. Hey, whether he can kneel or not in protest of anything he wants to do, certainly he can. And if his employer doesn't like it, that's between him and his employer. We've gone to see the show. That's all a football game is. We think it's like we have a right to a football game, or we have a right to a baseball game. That's not a protected right, other than our freedom to move about and assemble where we want to assemble. But as far as what the actor does on the stage, years ago, a famous female singer, in the middle of her concert, went into a whole political dialogue, and so much of the audience was upset about that they walked out. But there was no boycott this, boycott that. They just, okay, I don't like your show, I'm leaving. And that's been sufficient in the past. But I think there are elements in our society now that are looking for any reason to divert from what they really want to do. This isn't new in politics. They were so bad, many presidents come in and say, well, it was so bad before me that I can't, it's going to take me longer to fix it than I thought. And I always thought to myself, when politicians blame the one before them, how inept are they that they didn't know that and have a plan to fix it? The truth is we have a system in place, and what you want in public leadership is and Martin Luther King had it right. Let's look at the content of the character. It really isn't important that somebody made mistakes in life. What did they do with that? Did they keep making the same mistake over and over and over? That speaks to character. So when we're looking at all these diversions. And I think it's funny, the clip that Mel showed is so true. Go to a candidate debate. Watch out for the guy that says, or the gal that says, that's a great question, and walks right past it. That is indicative of the kind of leader they are. You want somebody to answer your question directly, even if you don't like the answer. A lot of times people ask questions, I don't like that answer, even though it was the honest answer from the candidate or the individual. We tend to be too thin-skinned in American society today, so it's easy to create red herrings. Oh, aren't you offended that he knelt at your national anthem? Honestly, no.
Gotcha. Well, let me ask you this, Nate, really quickly, if you can. What was the issue that Kaepernick was in?
I believe wasn't his police brutality. That's how much I paid attention to it. I didn't.
Well,
I believe this police brutality.
I think what you're doing is you're expressing, actually showing the fact that the diversionary tactic that was meant to be used was quite effective. But we'll talk about that further move on. Mel, let me get some of your thoughts about the topic.
When George Bush declared that the war in Iraq was over, and he came flying in on his airplane and landed on an aircraft carrier. Now, I don't remember when that was, but that had to be over 10 years ago. And
2000.
we're still fighting over it in Iraq, but yet we've had the end of the war back at that other time. And to me, that is that red herring that switches off. Man, look at our president flying a jet, coming in on a aircraft carrier. Now, not that he's a wrong or a bad man. I'm just saying these are political tactics. And as an American, we have to be aware. We have to use our understanding, our deduction. We have to become our own Sherlock Holmes.
Well, what I'll say also is that we're talking about red herrings and we're talking about tactics. And the thing is, when we brought up Kaepernick as an example, we have a tendency to talk about things that are other than the topic that Kaepernick protested. And we tend to forget that the kneeling was a form of protest. And then we start formulating our opinions about other things. It's an employer-employee issue. The national anthem, you're disrespecting the flag, you're disrespecting America. All these arguments. Meanwhile, over here, there's a group of people that are saying, hold on, man, what about us? This is what this is supposed to be all about. And we have a tendency, when we don't want to talk about things, we have a tendency to avoid talking about them, to evade them. And what happens is we have one of the tactics that typically used is we make it about ourselves. Instead of us saying, okay, I'd like to learn more about the topic that you're protesting, we have a tendency to say, well, I don't like what you're doing. I think it's this and I think it's that. We make it about us. And then meanwhile, the people that feel aggrieved are left with their issue never met. And the issue continues to go down the line. And then we have flare-ups again. And everybody's like, well, what's the big deal? So I think that one of the resolutions is, as it relates to red herrings, is some of what all of us have said, and that is that we have to educate ourselves, empower ourselves with information, and then make informed decisions so that we're not as easily distracted by the red herrings and tactics that are used.
Well, I think there's a lot of red herrings going on, and one of them that comes to mind is the COVID-19. Is that a red herring? Is that to cover up something that is going on underneath or to divert your attention? I always look at these objects as a deterrent or something to cover up something else that is going on. Okay? Now, I might be wrong, but I don't see where they're doing anything. But with the COVID-19, I look at it that they're trying to push a drug on you. There is nothing about you taking care of yourself or anything other than what they're gonna come up with to inoculate you with. And then there's things that says they're looking at putting some sort of tracking device into the medicine so that they can track you. So what really is going on with all of this going on? I'm not sure. I just have my doubt as to whether the red herring, I mean, not the red herring, whether the COVID-19 is actually a pandemic or is it a cover up for something else that's going on?
Well, let me ask you this, Ruther, just really quickly. What do you feel is the possibility? Where does your mind go when you think about um, COVID-19? If it is indeed a distraction, what do you think that is really going on?
I think it's a deterrent for something else that is going on. There's too much going on, like the corn shortage, the COVID-19, and then you get all these mixed reports on all of it. So I think it's cover up for something else that we won't know until sometime later we'll find, oh, so that's what they did during this time. This is the change that they made during this time. So I'm not sure what it is, but I do feel that there is something else going on besides what we are being told.
All right. I also believe that the COVID is a red herring as well. I realize that people are sick and a lot of people are dying. We're also dying from the flu. I have noticed that they're really pushing these flu shots this year, and there actually some states are making it mandatory, especially for the kids in the school. I know for a fact that there are certain medications. There is a company here in Jacksonville, I believe it's Jacksonville, Florida, that actually puts a little device inside your pills so that it sits, the stomach acid will actually dissolve the pill, but the device sits inside you and it tracks what you're doing. So that's pretty scary, and that's something I learned from a contract that I worked at. And right now they've been testing it on heart patients.
And what does it track, Robin?
It's tracking. What it does is it sends a message to your doctor saying that you confirming that you actually took the pill. And then I'm not sure what else they're doing with it, but I know that's one of the first steps. It's just confirming with the doctors that you took the pill. So a patient, says that they're having problems and they're not taking, they're still having problems and they tell the doctor that they're taking the pills. Well, the doctors can now confirm that they're not taking the pill because they're not getting this read back. And that was a few years ago that was started. That was pretty scary. I know they're trying really hard to push a vaccine for this COVID, and they're fighting over what kind of vaccine, but they're also looking to include the flu shot and some other things. Well, with the shingle shot, we're already on shingle shot number 3, and as soon as that shingle shot wears off, you automatically get the shingles. So, who wants to take the shot? And I certainly don't want to do the flu shot. And I certainly don't want to do this vaccine either. And we don't know what the side effects are going to be. And a lot of people are having bad side effects from the COVID. Well, some of them, those side effects are from the drugs that they were giving them. And they have no idea. And now they're finding some of the cancer drugs that they were using to help patients with breast cancer are now causing all kinds of other cancer problems. So, what's really going on? And I think a lot of it's all about control and how much they can control us. And that's the way it is. And social media is not helping any with people being allowed to voice their opinions. There's too many opinions out there. There's not enough people stopping and thinking for themselves and trying to find out what's really going on.
Thank you, Robin. Before we go over to Nate, I want to go around the room really quickly. Yes or no, 2 quick questions, and they're just yes or no, and I will go around really quickly. First question is, do you get a flu shot? And the second one is, will you get the COVID vaccine shot if and when one comes available here in the short term? My answer is no, I don't get the flu shot, and I still am undecided about the COVID vaccine. Both are yes or no questions.
No, I don't get the flu shot. I've never gotten a flu shot.
Will you take the vaccine for COVID if one's available?
No, not if I can get around it.
Robin, same question.
No and no.
Nate?
Absolutely not.
No and no.
Mel?
Yes and maybe.
Well, let me give you a recent example in my life. I was at Disney Springs over the weekend, and it's, I don't know who knows the movie Logan's Run, but there's always the announcer saying where you got to be, what you got to be doing, and you go in and you have to have an approved face mask. They didn't like the one that Kelly had, and we had to go back to the car and get a different one for her.
Wait a second. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Who didn't like your mask? Who didn't like your mask?
The person that the first Disney employee you run into, they had to approve your mask. It sucks the fun right out of it. But anyways, all I could think about the whole time we were there, a couple hours, we had a little something to eat and walked around, and listened to the announcer reminding us, what we should do and how we should do it. And it just occurred to me that, what they ought to have instead of the warning about wearing your mask, they should have just the warning, social engineering experiment in progress should be at the front of the entrance there.
In your mind, that the red herring is this COVID and everything around that, the mask wearing versus not mask wearing, social distance. You feel that's the red herring that's hiding or meant to hide the fact that this is a social engineering project?
That's a great question. And don't we live in a great land where we're allowed to make those questions and have those questions that we want to have? You see what I just did?
I was going to say, Nate, you sound like your family guy.
Does that
are you a politician, sir?
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much, Nate. Hey, Nate, that was fantastic. Thank you. Mel,
come on, Mel, we're on camera now.
I love Nate. I wanted to bring up something else. We had two
9/11.
We had two over the last month or so. George Floyd George, I believe the name is.
George Floyd.
After his death, everybody was upset because of the knee on his neck. And then it came out that he had taken drugs before. He had been actually put in jail for something. He had been getting into trouble. And that became the real discussion about how bad this guy was. What the people were talking about is what they saw, which was completely different from what he was. The gentleman who was shot 7 times in the back, now they're saying he had a knife. The question is that the question, or is the question 7 shots in the back? That is the switch. That is the red herring. Let's talk about the 7 shots. Don't tell me that there was a knife. Or did he pull the knife or whatever? Getting shot in the back, that knife is not going to do you any good stabbing backwards. But that's not the case. That's still wrong. All I'm saying is focusing on what we're talking about. We were talking about him being shot in the back. We were talking about a guy with a knee on his throat. So as we go through
3 elements that nations that are doing better as terms of numbers of infection, as well as death rate, death count, 3 elements that those nations had in common. And one of them was the first one they mentioned is that there was a national response in those countries. There was a joint response from the top all the way through. And so that was the first element. One of the second elements was that those nations, or the residents or citizens of those nations, were willing to give up some civil liberties so that they could, and by trusting their leadership that came up with the national plan, they were willing to compromise some civil liberties, wearing masks, social distancing, et cetera, et cetera. And then the third thing it mentioned was that there was a sense of we versus me in those countries' response. So it was more so, okay, I don't necessarily know, the way that it kind of contextualized itself was that I didn't know if a mask was going to be effective or not, but I'm going to do it because I really don't care as much about myself in the midst of a pandemic as much as I care about everyone else well as myself in the midst of the pandemic. Those are the three elements that the article had mentioned. So I did want to mention that. And I'll go back to also, I want to go back to also the diversionary tactics that are used. I did want to say that relative to Colin Kaepernick, please remember what he was protesting. I don't blame people for being upset about the flag and other topics. That's your right. I have no problem with that. But the folks that he's representing, the voice that he's trying to amplify, they also have a right to be heard and not to be ignored because we want to focus on distraction. The George Floyd murder, this latest shooting, police shooting, with we to start to blame the victim. Everywhere else that I know of in society, when it comes to victimization, blaming the victim is anathema. As soon as you blame the victim, you're considered out of the realm of fairness. You're not playing fair. And victims, by definition, are voiceless. Victims, by definition, are repressed. Victims, by definition, just by the definition of being a victim, you need advocacy. You need support. You need the nation, the most powerful nation, the only nation in my mind that I know of in existence today that has the ability that if we all band together and overpower the folks that are in power, we're the only nation that's set up that way. But yet we are allowing ourselves to be diverted from being able to be our best. And once we're at our best, then we're truly not just great and not just truly at our greatest, but then we truly become the greatest nation to have ever existed in documented history. And that's a fact. Until then, though, we get what we get. So I did want to say, I will go starting off with Rother. If you wanted to give us some summary of what we kind of talked about today, if you want to take it away from there.
Well, I like I said before, I think a lot of this is really to cover up. And if you really look at it, good news never sells. It is always the bad news that people will buy. And I remember years ago that they used to say that there is nothing new under the sun. Everything is a repeat. If you look at the pandemic, 1918, they had a pandemic where they wore masks. Did it stop anything? I'm not sure. Uh, and mention the mask, I wear a mask not for necessarily my protection, but for the benefit of others, because I know people that are paranoid about this pandemic. I've seen people walking in the street at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, walking in the street, nobody out there, and they're walking with a mask on. So sometimes you do things not necessarily for your protection, but for the protection of others, or for their safety, or for their belief. See, I'm one that haven't gotten used to this elbow bumping. I'm used to shaking your hand, hugging you. So it's all new to me. But I think that's part of what's going on there, is that people are afraid.
History definitely repeats itself, and we have gone around and around over the years with different pandemics. The countries that you mentioned, John, earlier, they also have learned from the pandemics, especially one of the last big ones was the swine flu, and they actually learned from that and saw what it did and didn't want to repeat it. I think one of the issues we have here in the States is that people come here because they know that there's a lot more freedom here, at least the image of a lot more freedom. And so they feel that once they come here, or even if they're born here, that they can do what they want. And also a lot of other countries, they care for the well-being of their seniors. Sorry, but I don't think the United States does a very good job with that either. So I think people need to decide what it is that's going to benefit for them. And yes, you need to worry about your neighbors also, and you need to show some kindness and some humanity. But I still think we need to think for ourselves, and it definitely all, just like in corporate, it all comes from the top.
Well, I couldn't have said it better, Rob, and my sentiments mirror yours exactly on that matter. And I will say that relative to your comments, um, everything had kind of a gift and a curse, yin and a yang aspect, and freedom a lot of time comes with it. Um, some consequences. And so one of the things I love about America though is that we're in a constant mode to kind of figure it out. And again, we're the only nation that I know of that does it the way in which we do it. So even though as messy as it may be, it may seem, as ugly as it may look, we are still trying to figure it out. I think that we should be proud of ourselves as a nation to that end.
I think the only way that this country works, and I'm going to bring this all around to red herrings or diversions. I think the only way this country works is through personal integrity, a sense of honor, a sense of citizenship, a responsibility, first and foremost for yourself, and that's in the realm of honor and integrity. Meaning, you know, don't look out, don't lie, cheat, and steal because it's in your best interest. It's never in your best interest to do anything counter to societal norms of honor and integrity. So when you see these red herrings, you know that something's. You always see that something's up there. But sometimes I even think that it takes a village is a bit of a red herring because it's asking you, okay, just forget yourself completely and do what the whole needs. Well, the needs of the whole might not fit your needs personally. And again, capturing yourself, your needs within the parameters of what's honorable, what constitutes personal integrity, honesty, so be careful about the red herring of well, I wear the mask to help other people. Well, sure, but you should be doing things that keep you healthy. You stay healthy, your neighbor's not gonna be infected or affected by your lifestyle. Um, so I let's be careful of those red herrings, in my humble opinion, and do the things that you know are right, and that's good for society.
So, Nate, based on what you were saying, and we were all talking about, it's like when you're on boarding an airplane, and just before the takeoff, and they tell you to put your mask on first, and then take care of other people. So it's the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yes. Thank you.
Nate, you mentioned about the Thank you, Robin. You mentioned about the concept of it takes a village, and that's a shortened um,
Yeah.
euphemism, if you were, a version of the African concept is it takes a village to raise a child, and so unfortunately, in my mind, what's happened is that's been kind of coined and misconstrued. I will say because what happens though is that it misses, and Nate, to your point in that when it's misconstrued, what happens is we have a tendency to miss what that really was about. The first thing it starts off with, though, is individual accountability. Everything in from that came out of that concept starts off. When you look at the African concept that overall came from, it takes a village. It starts off with your responsibility as an individual to be the best you can be, and that way you can help fill in the gaps that may open so that so that somebody falls, we have them because the village is what binds it together. But if you have a village full of individuals that don't have any sense, that don't have any competencies, well then it doesn't much you're not going to raise anything, but confusion. So to that end, that it takes a village concept comes from the beginning is the individual, from the individual to the family, the clan, the tribe, the nation. That was where that came from. So.
What I'd like to leave you with is this. You're good.
Thank you for tuning in to today's podcast. Next week, join us when we talk about the issue of domestic violence.